Hello and welcome to another episode of the Making It in Asheville podcast, where each week we sit down with an Asheville entrepreneur, business owner, community member, ask them what they are making and how they are making it in Asheville. This week I'm joined by Jacob Bauman of Devil's Foot. He is the co-founder and considered the VP of operations, but like all business owners, wears many hats, and we cannot wait to get into your story. Welcome, and thank you for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, it's good to meet you.
It's great to meet you. And so we just did guests, or I guess listener, for some context, we are in Ernest's ready-made warehouse, and you are the next door neighbor / tenant next to Ernest. And so we just did an awesome walking tour of your space. Thank you for showing us.
Yeah, anytime. Like whenever you're here, bring anybody over. We like to show it off.
And so that is it the entirety of Devil's Foot production at this point? And we know, or the audience might know, about the Mule, which is your kind of bar concept. But is that all of Devil's Foot today?
Yeah, right now it is.
It's very exciting. And it smelled wonderful. Not like most breweries.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the non-fermentation that we don't do. So yeah, it smells like Fruity Pebbles and Lucky Charms when we're brewing in there, which is it's pretty lovely. It's all real fruit, so it's hard not to smell good when we're processing it up. But
amazing. So at a high level, Devil's Foot Brewing is what?
We make all natural craft sodas using real fruit. So we don't use extracts. We don't use quote unquote natural flavors. We bring in strawberries from a South Carolina farm, blueberries from a North Carolina farm. We fresh squeeze organic lemons and limes on like brew days. It's as fresh as possible. We keep the sugars super low compared to other sodas on the market. And it's really tasty. So, and I think when you drink, you can kind of taste that. We did a lot of A and B and C and D test batches early on with the citrus stuff, and there was just no comparison to fresh squeeze. So I was just like, all right, if we're gonna do it, we might as well do it. We could save a lot of money and energy if we didn't do it that way, but that's not really the whole goal. If you spend a lot of time doing something with your days, might as well make something as good as you can, I think is our kind of MO. So yeah.
I love that. How long have you been at it at Devil's Foot?
Our first canning day was November 26, 2017. So about 5.5.
Incredible. And what is, in terms of scale, how do you think about the size of your business today? Is it in the total number of cans? Is it in revenue? How are you thinking about the business?
I think both of those things. But yeah, a little bit of footprint as well, like those three things.
So like states that you sell into?
Yeah, we're in 5 right now, just regionally: North, South Carolinas, Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. We just signed with the latest one.
Amazing.
Yep.
And so that's 5 years, probably feels a little bit like a whirlwind. How are we thinking about the world today? You've seemed squarely settled in at the new headquarters. Is that not true? Is it true?
Oh, no. I mean, we're definitely settled, but I mean, settled, I don't know if I would use that word. We're fully comfortable and operating at our, not nearly our capacity, but no, I mean, it's always to the future for sure. I've had big eyes with this thing for quite some time before I even held a can. So yeah, I think it's in the data that people like what we do, and so we're going to continue to do that.
Awesome.
I mean, there's been talks of, we know what it is. We can block template and do it somewhere else. We know how much it costs to start it, and the whole idea, I mean, our slogan is on all of our cans, which is keep it simple, keep it fresh, drink it in. That last part was just a throwaway line from Anchorman. But, the idea of keeping it fresh wouldn't be brewing it here and shipping it to Colorado or to Texas. It would be, now that we know how to do it.
Sure.
that's been, literally sitting around the dinner table, drawing it out on a piece of paper way early on.
Wow.
An idea that we had about this. So
I love it. So then maybe we go back. It seems like that's a perfect segue. Why soda? How did it start? Where did we?
I can take no credit for that.
Sure.
That's not true because I've worked really hard at this. I don't know how deep you want to go into it, but I had an idea for a business. I was managing bars, bartending. I'm a musician. I've been a professional musician for 20 years.
Wow.
Almost now. My stepdad's an entrepreneur. I never once had even thought about starting my own business. And I was like 31, and I just kind of got struck by lightning a little bit. And I won't go into the details of what this other business was, but recruited the people that I thought would help that business out. The main business partner, Ben Colvin, being one of those people who we're still in business with together, obviously. And that, for many reasons, kind of started to dwindle. And we were just at the bar one night, and he was like, I've always had this idea about a ginger beer. And I was like bartending and going through all this terrible ginger beer. And I was like, stared at the ceiling for about 2 days. And I was like, that's a good idea. So we just started brewing in the backyard. We Frankensteined our systems from, being in Asheville for as long as we had. We knew a bunch of brewers, brewery owners. We're just like, hey, do you have anything that would work? We started with pretty much no money, all self-funded from selling drinks over the bar,
Sure.
And so we found a little spot that people weren't even trying to rent. It was a basement garage, essentially. We didn't have a sign on purpose because we didn't want people knocking on our door.
Sure.
And we did that for like 4.5 years. It took 3 years from the slightly drunken hand slap, like, all right, let's do this, to holding a can. Took 3 years.
Wow. Yeah. Was that, so you said the first brewing day, 2017. So
yeah,
would that have been 2014-ish? You had that first conversation?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, that was a lot of different reasons. We're all working our normal jobs at that point. Enthusiasm would wane from time to time. And it's like, hey, remember, we're doing the thing, right? So yeah, it took that long. And then we called it the shoe, because that's where the foot goes. That's what one of my buddies said. So we were at the shoe for 4.5 years, and luckily found this space. And I mean, we had no space left over there. We were tripping over each other, and so it was time, and it was the right time. And we had been, like I said earlier, we'd been looking for a couple years. Commercial real estate is tough in this town.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'll attempt to pause there.
Sure.
And just go, it's the shoe because it's where the foot goes. Was the name always Devil's Foot? Like, did you, and what, does it mean anything particularly?
So, no, I mean, when we were looking for a name, it's like we got our recipes together, and then we were like, all right, what are we going to name it? And we were brewing one day at Ben's house, and his wife, Vashti, there's like ginger all over the kitchen. And she picked one up, and she's like, looks like a devil's foot. And we were all like, hey. I feel like it rolls off the tongue.
It does.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
And the more I do this stuff, because maybe I'm sliding in a tangent that we can go back to. I do all of our design.
No way.
As well. And so with some help of some friends, but for the most part, I'm doing that stuff. And
wow.
So I was like, we're a ginger beer company, right?
Yeah.
And then we made 2 ginger beers, and then we were like, how do we make more money? We were like, let's make a lemonade. And we made the lemonade, and people were like, this is the best lemonade I've ever had. And I was like, Did we just start a lemonade company? So it started as, the name is because of the ginger, right?
Sure.
And then later on, found out that there's a Sherlock Holmes book called The Mystery of the Devil's Foot. I haven't read it.
We'll link to it in the show notes.
And then another kind of random, like the original, the Sanskrit translation of ginger was horn and body. Kind of random. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe we tapped into something that, I mean, that's what ginger looks like.
Yeah, a little kismet that it is. And that's a great name, and it makes sense in my brain. And so absolutely over 3 years. So one of the considerations is 3 years from idea to first brew day. Are there any in that process? And going back, my hope is that you don't say, yes, I would change so many things about those first 3 years, because it does seem to have worked itself out. But like,
Sure.
if you were to do another project, or if you had a friend, colleague, mentor, nephew, cousin, sister who wanted to start a thing, does 3 years before first brew day sound like the right amount of time? Sound long? Would you say test it?
I think it sounds long, but
Sounds long to me.
but
Sounds like a lot of patience. Feels like patience.
well, and that's goes back to like some enthusiasm waning and
Sure.
and having. I mean, I felt like that was one of my bigger things during that 3 years was being cheerleader and being like, hey, remember the thing? Because everybody gets into their zones and
Sure.
peaks and valleys of that. No, I definitely think it was long. I think. None of us had ever started our own business before. This is all very new. And, if one positive thing is that we didn't start with funding right away, right? So we control 100% of our business at this point. We don't have to run anything by anybody. And so that for me now, looking at it, great idea. And I mean, we've had funding talks throughout this 5.5 years, and we've still not done it, based on several different, variables. But I think there's so many variables that go into it. So it's like, if I had an angel investor early on, 3 years is way too long.
Sure.
But we didn't. And, I mean, the amount of people that scoff is not a right word, but didn't really see what we were seeing was significantly more than the people that were like, oh, that's a good idea. So like, I mean, I think, as I was saying, the data's there, the proof is in the pudding, so to speak. It's like, all right, people like, there is a market for this. To say we created it is debatable, like at least locally, right?
Sure.
Obviously, there was craft soda before us, but yes, I do think it's long, I guess, to answer your original question. And would I change anything about it? No, because I mean,
It's worked.
Yeah.
With what amount of research I've done about Devil's Foot, it does seem, though, while you haven't taken funding, equity funding,
right,
it does seem like you've done some pretty interesting stuff by way of like grant funding.
Oh, yeah.
At what point did that start becoming a part of the game plan?
Fairly early on, and that I will give 100% credit to Ben. He was in the nonprofit sector for 15 years before starting this. So just the art of grant writing in and of itself, he was already privy to, and then also just knowing that they existed and knowing who to speak to about figuring out where there is those opportunities. So our first two that we received was from an organization called NC Idea. And if I'm not mistaken, they're state and federally funded. And we got a microseed grant. I want to say that was in 19, maybe. And then, which was 10K, which is like, feels like hitting the lottery a little bit. You're like, oh, what? Okay. And then
were there any strings attached? Like, did that need to be used in some particular way?
No.
Cool.
I mean, there was, follow-up reporting and whatnot, but no, which is amazing.
Yeah.
We used that one to buy a delivery van because I was delivering in my personal car for the first couple years. And then they have one called the Seed Grant, which is $50,000, and we weren't really going to apply for that because we had just gotten the micro, and the person that we had been working with in that organization was like, you guys are kind of perfect for this. You should really apply. And we're like, okay. And then we got it.
Wow.
We were, I think, the only F&B business organization to get that one, at least up until that point or that year or something like that. There's not a lot of F&B in that. It's a lot of tech stuff. And so, yeah, those are great. And then we've just recently been working with Land of Sky, doing some workforce development stuff, some training for us, our people, our team. So
that's awesome.
It's really, really awesome.
It's such a incredible difference maker. I think in the past we've talked about the many ways you could theoretically infuse a business with money, equity, debt. Right. Grants seem like hard to hit, but if you can get grant money, it seems like probably the best road.
It's, yeah, I mean, because not only, I mean, the money's great, obviously, but I mean, we got a lot of good publicity out of it too.
That's the X factor, it seems. Because like banks aren't going to be like, hey, necessarily, hey, we just gave a line of credit to this business.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't want people to know that anyway.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's. I mean, I feel incredibly fortunate, just personally, that Ben has those skills. We are two very different people with two very different skill sets that I think complement each other very well. 3 years, 5.5 years, and we still like each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
which is huge.
Huge. Do you tell me some more about the yin and the yang of y'all's skill sets?
Oh, well, I mean, that kind of leads into it. I think he was, I think he was an ED of a couple of different land preservation nonprofits. I was a bartender. I'm an artist. I'm like at the shows, I'm at the parties. People are like, there's the Devil's Foot guy. I'm like, okay, I'm out there. He's got 2 kids and a lovely wife. He's not able to do those things so much, but he's I've always been impressed with his like macro vision. And it's kind of changed the way I look at stuff too, just being around him as much as I am. But yeah, I think just on a basic level, like the VP of operations, so I'm like kind of in the what am I looking for? Down in the trenches a little bit more. I mean, he's still bruised. Like occasionally we'll still hop on the canning line and stuff. But yeah, I would say I think I summed it up pretty good.
Awesome. A question would be like in the years before moving into this space, what, if you were to think about it, what would be some inflection points, like mile markers in the timeline as you tell that story? Is it like the first 1,000 bottle day? I don't know what a milestone would be. What were some milestones? I
mean, for me, it was just, to be honest, I haven't really thought about that question a bunch. But I mean, answering it now, I would say just scaling up gear wise. Like the first canner we had was like hand 2 at a time, and then you take it off and you put the top on it and you put it on the thing and you hit a button. So really 1 at a time. And we did like 180,000 cans like that until we got our next one, which was like you still had to manually feed the cans in, but it was like on a slide, and then it was all automated. And that first one we could do like 6 or 7 a minute. That second one we could do like 24 a minute, and it was less physically demanding. And then the new one that does like 45 a minute, and it's all automated. So I would say just scaling up gear to help literally our backs and our watches, because it's like that first one, it would take like 5 hours to empty a pretty small tank in the grand scheme of things. And now it takes us an hour to do one like 3 times that big. So it's like, it's just like efficiencies. And then on that same level, I think another one would be when we added the current team members, like each one kind of like took us to a new place.
Sure.
And efficiencies, because me and Ben were doing everything. And then we right before the 2020 quarantine times, we had a delivery driver for a little bit. And then after the shutdown, we shut our doors for like 6 weeks. And then people started ordering again. We were like, oh, okay, we got to go back. And so it was just me and Ben then for a long time. And then added Asher, our delivery guy, who we love so much. And then added, I can't even remember which one was first because they were about the same time, both Paul and Brandon. Brandon worked at Pisgah Brewing for about 10 years, so he knows the gear. He's a very organized, mellow person, lovely guy as well. And then Paul, X Factor, he was he was almost like stalking us until we hired him. And I'll take that because he's incredible. He can pretty much fix anything. Very enthusiastic dude. So those would, for me, that's just like, it's made my life a lot easier. I still work very long hours, but I'm not nearly in the production world as much as I was. So I can lean more on marketing stuff, on design stuff, and some of that.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
We interrupt this episode with a horror story, an e-commerce horror story that my wife, Sarah Ubertaccio, experienced, but I'm going to preface, she's not alone. You might be an e-commerce store owner. You might have a friend who's an e-commerce store owner. And this story is universal, though specific. Sarah, please take it away.
Yeah, well, I own a small business called QB Cucina, and we sell Italian pasta tools and kitchenware. And in our previous space where we were fulfilling from, one day my employee was packaging up a bunch of packages to ship via UPS, and UPS did not pick up from this location. And so she was going to package them up and take them out to the car and drive them to UPS. Well, it was raining a lot that day.
As it tends to here in Asheville.
Yes, as it tends to here in Asheville. And on her way, taking the dolly out to her car, some packages flew off the dolly, were soaking wet. She was soaking wet. And then she had to repackage them, like go back up to the office and repackage them because they were ruined and couldn't be shipped out. So, yeah.
And I'm so sorry to hear that story. That's a heartbreaker. Now you don't have to worry about that happening anymore because you work at Ernest Ready-Made Warehouse and they have daily pickups and deliveries from FedEx, UPS, and USPS.
Yes, it's like suddenly we have a valet and concierge at our fingertips, which is amazing. They have daily pickups from all the major shipping carriers, and they have a huge loading dock so we can receive our shipments very easily 24 hours of the day, every day of the week, which is amazing.
To learn more about Ernest Ready-Made Warehouse, visit makingitinasheville.com/Ernest, ERNEST. We have all sorts of information about this season, about our sponsor, Ernest Ready-Made, and offer a very special incentive for those of you who are small business owners in Asheville who could benefit from this facility. Back to the episode. In terms of marketing stuff and design stuff, what has been some of the cooler or best marketing / design stuff that's happened?
Oh man, we just rebranded all our citrus stuff. So I'm very, very excited about that. I would say that for the most part, all the designs that we had were out of necessity. So it was kind of like, I taught myself all the Adobe stuff back before this business even started because I was doing show posters.
Makes sense.
But I was always like, why am I doing this? And then I was like, oh, okay, here it is. So, I've saved the company quite a bit of money by keeping that in-house. But all of our previous designs, as fun and as eye-catching as they were, there wasn't much cohesion there. And like I said, it was out of necessity in the sense of like, oh, we've got this new product. Okay, what is it going to look? All right, let me just throw something together. And those evolved over time, obviously, as well. But super pumped about this new direction. It kind of came about of our can that I did with the whale collab that we did, which is the hopped lemonade, which I just kind of had one of those moments in art where you're like, oh, okay, hop looks about the same shape as a lemon. So I was like, oh, it's like just kind of melt into the other one. And then we worked with a designer out of Jacksonville named Keith Lowe lovely guy, and kind of threw him that and was like, well, what can you do with this? And he came up with the concept of it being split. And so that is the new direction with all of the citrus stuff, of the flagship citrus stuff. So that's super, I'm pumped about that. We're opening a bunch of new retail. That was kind of the main goal of moving into the space was like, all right, now that we have the space to kind of have bigger gear, it's like, it was always kind of like hitting the streets and kind of roots up, kind of building for us. And then now it's like, all right, let's check out some retail and see what we have. Cause people are coming to town and they have it at a restaurant. And they're like, where can you get it? I'm like, well, the Co-op. And then the Earth Fair, but now we're opening a bunch of fresh markets, which is exciting in all those states that I mentioned earlier. And just kind of growing that side of our business and brand visibility as well.
So I love that. In the timeline of how you went to market, more clarity would be awesome. So it started with like events. It started with selling directly into breweries. It started with and now retail is a part of the mix, which seems like would be a huge part in terms of volume, but maybe lower margins because you're selling to,
definitely,
these folks who need to make money too.
Yep. So yeah, I mean, we started, like I said, we had never owned a business, let alone a beverage business. So it was like, all right, let me just hit the streets. And like I said, I was in my own car. I'd lived here at that point for almost 15 years. So most places I walked in to, I kind of knew a person there or something. And I was like, hey, you know me. And then like, look at this thing. And so that was very helpful, just having our collective networks, and Asheville being Asheville. No knock to any other town I would name, say Knoxville or whatever. But like, I don't think we would have seen the success at the rate that we've seen if it wasn't for the support of the Asheville community. So thank you, Asheville. But yeah, so I started, we just started that way. And then, I mean, we still don't have a dedicated salesperson. That's kind of the next person on the team that we're talking about. And a lot of our sales, obviously, other than repeat customers, business is now coming to us. Because of our successes and our just overall visibility, and I think our delicious products as well. But so I mean, our continued client base is growing. Our it's more coming to us, really, which is nice. I mean, I still think we're missing a ton of stuff, and that is where that salesperson comes in. But yeah. So the retail. Like I said, when we moved in here, we were like, okay, this is the time to kind of start approaching retail. And so we had some relationships, but now that we've grown our distribution footprint, it was like, all right, we have the space to make the volume that you will need. We have the distribution connects to get you the product. So I think it's something that I could be completely wrong. I think we're opening another 35 fresh markets or something in the next month, probably. So that's exciting.
That seems like congrats.
Thanks.
That's awesome. That seems like a potentially massive jump in volume from whatever number to 35 added in a month. To walk me through what that process might look like. Is it just you got to get it out your door to distributors, and then they do the last connection to the 7 in Tennessee and the 7 in...
Yep, that's
got
it. So essentially, it all flows through the distributors.
Okay.
The distributors will place an order with us, and we'll fulfill it in a week. I mean,
sure.
The thing that I don't think we thought about too much before making it, the product itself, was how quickly we can turn our tanks. So we're not fermenting, like it's all the same gear as beer breweries, right? Steel hoses, canning line. But beer sits in a tank anywhere between 2 and 6 weeks to do its thing.
Sure.
We're brewing today. You smelled it.
Yeah.
We can can it tomorrow.
No way.
Yeah. And that's based on the gear that we have acquired.
Sure.
So when we started, like I was saying, we Frankensteined our system. We had these they're called Grundy tanks, right? They're kind of like big, weird, like squatty looking tanks that I think were like milk holder. They were originally made, they were made in England. And we would pallet jack them in and out of our big walk-in cooler to cool it down, because liquid has to be cold to be infused with CO2.
Huh.
And so that was how, but now we're like all the breweries you see, it's called glycol jacketed tanks. So the tanks have jackets, and this refrigerant is constantly cycling through it. So it cools it down way quicker. And so, yeah. So on that level, we don't need much more steel to make
A lot more.
plenty of product. Like
How amazing.
Yeah.
That's such an interesting
Yeah.
X factor in production. Like the
Totally.
bottleneck that a brewery would have is probably not the same then.
Significantly different. I mean, we can make, 3x as much product as a brewery down the road in
With like a six
in a day,
Yeah.
and they're looking at 3 weeks.
Wow.
So if you that's starts to exponentially grow when you look at months and you look at years, and it's
Wow.
so that's been helpful, obviously, and in our acceleration of being able to, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a product, like somebody's like, I want a product, it's gonna be 2 or 3 weeks.
Sure.
They might not want it anymore, or it's just this. It's helped us grow quickly and sustainably,
Yeah.
for sure.
When thinking about it seems to me that beverage businesses grow largely through distribution, but there's always some version of value captured in like the tasting room or the brew house, brewery, bar at the brewery, because you're owning the end relationship, like the end dollar
Absolutely.
value is yours. What portion, if you're comfortable, what portion of sales is happening like through your website or at the tasting room compared to overall?
So we just opened the tasting room in like late October. So that puts us at around, 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
Within that time, and I don't know if it's because of that, our online store has really gotten very busy.
Awesome.
Maybe half and half, because we ship nationwide. So on any given,
One of the other perks of not being alcohol.
absolutely, yeah, totally. So we'll, on any given day, I'll be seeing Texas, Minnesota, New Jersey, Virginia, Florida. Like it's just like the most random spots. But I'm assuming it's people that come here, have it, and then go home and want it again. I would say half and half is that, and then pick up at the production facility. Overall, though, it's a pretty small slice.
Yeah.
But as you were suggesting, not only the dollar amount of direct to customer, which is significant, it is I think the relationship in creating the feel of the product a little more.
Yeah.
Because for me, I think skills are taught for me. Or can be taught. I think I'm more like creating our team, like who vibes with us well. Like I spend enough time with these people. I need the feeling to be right and the people to be, and I'm not talking about I need like subservience or anything, because that's not the kind of person I am, but I need to be comfortable, because that is what it is. And I think we've done a good job of that. And so going back to people coming in, seeing the space, tasting the product, interacting with our team is very positive. And that's something we didn't have at the shoe. And so I'm very, very, I feel very fortunate that we found the space at the time that we did.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Want to talk through what looking for commercial real estate looked like, or how'd you all try and solve for it? It had to be a bear.
Yeah. There's only so many hours in a day, and we, were brewing and canning and delivering and designing and all that. So it was a lot of network reach outs, just being like, if anybody hears anything. I mean, we probably toured 10 or 12 spots before we found this spot. But it was always, I mean, we knew we couldn't do what we want to do growth wise in that original space. So it was, not from day one, but from day one of year 2, we were starting to look, and it was just, I don't know, it's just rough.
Yeah.
And then things like not necessarily being where we wanted them, like location wise, because we were like, oh, there's one way out in Weaverville, and it's perfect, and it's like in budget, but like, who's driving out there to go to a tasting room, right? Not a lot of people. Whereas like this space, not only location wise, but like size wise, it's like we had 260 like Star Wars fans in there recently for like a Beer City Comic-Con event. We had Kipper doing the trivia, and it's just like, this is awesome and it's fun and the space feels good. So that goes again to the relationship factor of like being good hosts. And I hope that when people think about the product, they think about the feeling, right? The more I'm getting into it, I'm like, how does something feel? Feel like like your experience with it, instead of like, oh, it's a can of liquid. So what is it? I don't know. Something I think about more than I did at the beginning.
Sure.
So yeah, the relationship's important to me for sure. Oh, go ahead.
No.
I just think the story is important. I think one thing that we do different is working with farms, with actual farms. So, we've been and toured the honey farm that we get our honey from in upstate South Carolina. We know the guy well. He like comes through and we hang out, and it's like, that's, I think, a little bit different than breweries, than soda companies. It's just different. And so and on that level, I mean, working with farmers and like the honey farmer, the strawberry farms, the blueberries. We work with a gentleman who works on the farm in Peru, pulling the ginger for us. I mean, it's like, it feels very close in a good way. We're supporting them. And then, another thing that I don't know if you know about us, but we zest all our fruit, and we'll like sell this zest to like tea companies and bakeries and breweries. So we're kind of doing like a full cycle thing from the farm, using what we need and then kind of moving it along to its next space, which is, I think, quite different.
I love it.
And so, the relationship with the brand and with the customers, I want that to feel as good as our relationships do with the farms and stuff. So it's important, and it feels like it's where it needs to be, I think. It'll continue to grow, and evolve in ways that I hope stay true to that idea. So yeah.
Love it. When thinking about that relationship, a couple of things came to mind. One is, I guess, perhaps the background as a bartender. Is there the space is beautiful, the
Thanks.
mule. Is there something kind of inherent in being the bartender relationship?
Sure.
person?
I'm gonna give credit of that to my mom. She was always hosting, and she said, you need good music, good lighting, and ice. I was like, yeah, pretty much nailed it. So yeah, I've always kind of had that. I like to take care of the folks that are around. Are you hungry? What do you want? So yeah, I think that was part of just the aesthetic of the space. I wanted it to feel cozy, hence all the wood and the plants.
Yeah.
In the industrial setting, I think it kind of warms it up.
It sure does.
Yeah.
How big is that space? Like the total?
Total square foot with production and the mule, it's 14.4,
Wow.
And we came out of a 2,500 square foot garage. So I definitely like do stretches every morning when I get in there, and just like, okay, this feels good.
Yeah, still plenty of space. This whole building then is absolutely insane because there's like
62.
it's like 30 plus in Earnest.
Yeah.
And then there's the fulfillment side between you two, and then another
I think it's 62.
15. Wow.
Yeah.
Hello. Are you watching on YouTube, listening on your favorite podcast player? If you're not on YouTube, perhaps consider it, because behind us you would notice that we are in an absolutely beautiful space, and that space is our season sponsor, Earnest Ready-Made Warehousing. And so if you're not familiar with Earnest, it is fantastic. I am joined here by my wife, Sarah Ubertaccio, founder of QB Cucina and one of Earnest's newest clients.
Yeah, excited to be back on the podcast.
Great to have you back. Episode 110 if you haven't listened before. But what we want to talk about today is why you chose Earnest and what makes Earnest stand out, let's say, compared to finding a new office space in town to fulfill from. As a very high level, Earnest is a 30,000 square foot facility on Sweeten Creek, just south of Asheville. Huge facility, beautiful facility. Why did you choose to go with Earnest instead of any other place in Asheville?
Yeah, well, I have a small growing business, e-commerce. We sell pasta tools and Italian kitchenware. And we currently outgrew the space that we were in and really needed a different kind of space. And so I love Earnest. I love the fact that as we grow, Earnest can scale with us. So they have different sized co-warehousing spaces. So if we grow bigger, we can just quickly move over to a different space within the same building, which is a really huge time saver. I also really love that they have daily, sometimes multiple times a day, pickups from UPS, FedEx, and USPS. So we don't have to worry about packages getting lost or stolen, and our team doesn't have to drop them off at the post office, and it just saves us all a bunch of time and headache. And also they have temperature controlled rooms, which for a business like us, one of our products is pasta flour. It's really sensitive to temperature. It's really, really important for us to make sure that our products are secure and not getting damaged while they're being stored in our warehouse. And I love all the other amenities. They have a photography studio so we can quickly photograph our products. They have a full break room. They have co-working space that we're able to use for our meetings with team members and other people that may come to see us. And then just the sense of community, being around other small businesses is something that we currently don't have. And I'm really, really looking forward to connecting with others here.
I love that. EarnestReadyMade.com if you've not visited that before, or you can check out makingitinasheville.com/Earnest. And we have a bunch of information about the partnership we've built for this season, as well as some perhaps special discounts and incentives. If you happen to be a e-commerce business or the right fit for Earnest, you should definitely check out makingitinasheville.com/Earnest, ERNEST. And back to the episode.
It's wild.
Big building.
There's a creek running under it.
Oh, wow.
It runs under it.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it stops.
Yeah.
You guys got to go by Earnest and check out the creek that runs under it.
Yeah.
Going to write a book called The Creek That Runs Under It instead of the river that runs through it.
Yeah.
Silly. Love it. Hospitality, farms, community. In terms of so one of the things we went over, I have one of your collaborations, a 4-pack just off camera. Talk about the community in Asheville, and either name names or don't, but it seems like collaboration seems to be a part of the business as well. So not just farmers, but also some local brands.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you don't get anywhere by yourself, right? And, we've learned and will continue to learn a lot from our neighbors and friends that are in the beverage industry. There's plenty of pie for everyone, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think, as I was saying earlier, we've used some of these collaborations to test batch, to market some flavors. So the hop lemonade was with the whale. Now that's a flagship. Because people like it, and it's not super difficult to make compared to it's we've got our processes down, and it's also fun. I don't want to do the same thing every single day. I'm being an artist, musician. I don't like that. I play improvisational music. I can also not play improvisational music, but I prefer that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that, I mean, I think it's a win-win for just from business to business, like, brand growth. But it's also just fun, just meeting new people who are in this similar industry as you, who you literally work right down the street from. But, it's like some people I've never met, very nice, talented people. So it's definitely, I think, smart business, but it's also just fun. And not that I don't enjoy our normal stuff, but I don't know.
It's to me, I think that's doubly true. Smart business is often fun business, or if it's not, you're maybe not in the right business for you. But
right.
That's it. It seems great for a lot of reasons. Worst case scenario, you have this limited run, cool story. Yeah. We did this collab. Best case scenario is you found, the gold slick.
Totally.
And you're on to a vein that leads to something bigger over time. And I think that's really, it seems smart and it looks fun. So
it is, yeah. And I mean, it's like, these are generally places that carry our product. We now carry these people's products in the mule. It's like, it's just a big ball of love.
I love it. When thinking about the, I guess, next phases or the future of Devil's Foot, you kind of alluded to the idea that local and fresh are different based on geography.
Sure.
I don't know if that's I want to say red herring, but that's not it. Some sort of like clue as to what's to come. But what are you looking at in the future of Devil's Foot?
Yeah, I think that there is a lot of opportunity to take it somewhere else. The amount of work seems a little daunting when I think about that compared to the amount of work that I already have. But yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, I just remember early meetings talking about like figuring out the template and taking it somewhere else. We do see some seasonality in sales. When it's hot, we sell cold drinks. We do see a spike if we're somewhere where it's hot all the time. Do we just have constant growth? Maybe. So yeah, I mean, there's that. We have another line that we're about to come out with. It's not publicly known, but hey, I'm happy to share it here because we're about to drop it. We're doing a canned cocktail line. Ooh. So we're doing RTD cocktails using our sodas and kind of partnering with different distilleries. Here we go with the collab thing again. So each flavor, ideally, will be with a different distillery.
Fun.
And so we're calling it Friend of the Devil Craft Cocktails.
Oh, come on.
And yeah, I mean, we just got some federal approvals, and so you'll hopefully be seeing those for the next couple of months.
Wow.
So we're gonna have a big old party. You guys are invited. And so that's exciting. It's literally starting a whole new business, which the mule was as well. It's like, oh, we have this business that's growing. Let's start another business.
And it will be its own entity. It kind of has to be with liquor law, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yes. I don't know if it has to, but we decided to do that based on liability purposes.
Makes sense.
Amongst other things. But yes, it'll be its own thing.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah, it's exciting.
What would be an example? I mean, I don't know how much you're able or want to say. What would be an example of like an early cocktail that you're working on, and who might a partner look like? Are they local partners, or are they just partners?
Yeah, we
generally?
have a local partner right now. We've talked to some other local distilleries. We're working with a distillery out of Charleston.
Fun.
Organic distillery, and I think I could be wrong. This is in the same vein of what we're talking about, but one of the things that I think that our success with the soda company is because it's so like we're doing like approachable, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like you look at the ingredients list and there's like 5 ingredients, right? So like we're gonna at least start the line with pretty simple, the vodka lemonade, like a vodka mule. It's like, okay, we'll do a rum limeade with a little mint. So it's like just I'm not trying to go crazy right off the rip with a bunch of different stuff. So yeah, I mean, vodka lemonade is delicious, super duper tasty. So it's another fun thing where it's like, okay, this totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Once again, working with just other professionals in the industry, in the beverage world, where it's like definitely just picking up little nuggets of knowledge while also meeting interesting people. So that's exciting. I'm pumped about that. I think that's going to be, I mean, you're really only going to, when we launch it, you're only going to be able to get it at the Mule. And then I think because of North Carolina's, shall I say, rough processes, we're going to be shipping them to Georgia and some to Tennessee. So they're not even really going to be around North Carolina except at our tasting room. So, I think that'll drive some people there as well.
I suspect you're right.
Yeah.
And it seems that ready-to-drink beverages and cocktails are absolutely like white hot in the market for the last couple of years and don't seem to be slowing down.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's correct. I think you could look at what we're doing as going to be something a little bit different as well and being like, we're like fresh squeezing lemons, putting it in this can. Like, that's not what you're getting when you're drinking a Jim Beam canned cocktail. It's not. And that's fine. Those things are fine.
Yeah.
But that's not what we do. So
yeah, and the customer is probably a little different, you can argue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's fine too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were never going to compete with Coke, right? Like, that's not who... I mean, people drink our drinks. They also drink Coke. There's nothing wrong with that.
Sure.
But it's like, it probably costs like a half a cent or like a half of a cent to make a can of Coke. So it costs us a little more. So, yeah.
Heard.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. It's really exciting. What of all of the details one needs to take care of to become a alcoholic beverage brand perhaps surprised you, was the longest road, was most complex?
Just like the time.
Yeah.
Really. Because the wheels of government move slow, is what they say. And so I'm sure you've experienced this on some level from some government agency where like somebody tells you one thing and then another person tells you another thing. And you do one of those things, and it's just like, oh, that's not right. But I thought this person said it was right, So it's a lot of getting it together. But once it's together, I mean, same deal. I mean, we can sit here and talk. I could talk to you for hours about the help that we've gotten. A close friend of ours owns a local distillery, and I'll just be like, hey man, can I have 30 minutes of your time? Buy you a beer? So once, you get all the stuff together, I mean, having a good team of lawyers helps. Absolutely. I mean, we've done that from the very beginning. I had a good lawyer, and I think that I couldn't stress that enough for any startups. Let's get a lawyer, get a good accountant, because it'll cost a lot more down the road to fix a bunch of botches, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, this is just the time more than anything else.
Yeah,
I think. And not only that, but just like mental bandwidth of zooming in and out and moving all around while managing a growing business and having a relationship with my partner and playing in way too many bands and recording records and all the things. Yeah. So yeah.
It seems, well, about when did that process start, just to give a context of the time, because we're 3 months away from seeing these at the Mule. We got notification recently that it's greenlit. When did maybe
the idea's been there kind of from the beginning as
Forever.
well, because it's like, as you're saying, the market has grown, but it was, I guess, fairly novel about 5-6 years ago.
Sure.
But it was a space thing.
Yeah.
You have to have a separate space to do it.
Got it.
And we just didn't have the space.
And will it be here just in a different corner
Yep.
somehow?
Yep.
Awesome.
It's like all, it's all a separate thing.
Yeah. It seems that's perhaps a second example, and I'm sure there are many more of, running the core business and looking for commercial real estate sucks. Like it's hard to do.
Totally. Running
A core business and then thinking about the next version of the business seems complex and hard. And it seems to underscore your mile markers that you use for the business, which is like, we brought people in, added people. It seems to me, my guess is the extra bodies on teams Devil's Foot afforded you some extra bandwidth to think about the
Absolutely. 100%. 100%. Yeah. I mean, I think I've said this a lot as well. Early on, I mean, I feel like we willed it into existence a little bit. I mean, we were in the shoe at 2 a.m. squeezing lemons and watching Seinfeld, we have a good product, but at the beginnings, it was a lot of work, and it still is. But yes, 100%. Definitely more time to think of macro stuff when you're not on the canning line. Cans get crushed. Oh, I gotta do this. It's interrupted a lot. But I mean, like I said, we've had kind of big eyes from the beginning, so it was going to happen one way or the other, because that's kind of the kind of people that me and Ben are. It's just it's not if, it's when.
Yeah. So then how do you set the whens? Is it somehow hey, when X amount is in the bank, then it feels less risky? Hey, when this milestone happens is when we'll initiate the afterburners. How do you set the mile marker?
I would like to say that it's a little more scientific.
Sure.
But I mean, me and Ben have from the beginning done kind of a yearly retreat where it's just me and him and some whiskey, and we call it flip chart magic. And so we'll just have flip charts all over the walls and kind of come up with the next year or two, ideally. And then, goals are goals, and sometimes you hit them and sometimes you don't. And as long as you keep going forward, leaning in, I think I think you'll see, I mean, we've seen results just from leaning in and showing up every day. And it's some days I don't want to get out of bed and go to work, and I do it. And, I think there's something to that. I mean, we could talk at length about all the opportunities we're afforded as well, being who we are. But I think, I mean, it starts with an idea, right? And then you're like, okay, how do we actually do this? And then, okay, when can we do this? And, okay, you say X number of dollars in the bank. It's all right, well, if we don't have that, how do we get that X dollars to do the thing? So then that's a conversation in and of itself with, multitudes of different humans and organizations. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's super scientific. I think it's more just, I think there's something as, what's the word? It's perseverance, but not really stick-to-itness, of just kind of trying to keep your eye on that ball, even if it's very far away while you're doing some other stuff. For me anyway, that's I'm sure you've heard this a lot, interviewing entrepreneurs, but it's I don't really take days off, pretty much thinking about it a lot of most days, which I think is a testament to the thing because it doesn't bother me that I do that. You know, it's like I believe in it. I think we're doing what we can consciously, community oriented. So it's like I sleep well at night. I'm good at sleeping. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, I think once we agree on an idea that's good, then it's just like, okay, ideas are a dime a dozen. Let's execute it, you know, and figure out the best way to do that. And that's generally just leaning in. Like I said, It's like, oh, let's try this. Okay, did that work? Did that not work? Did part of it work? Did part of it not work? You know, it's just doing, I think.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I'm just very impressed by all that with a future that is at least going to have, is it Friend of the Devil or Friends?
Friend of the Devil.
Friend of the Devil.
Yeah.
Great freaking name.
Thank you.
Is a friend of mine. And if I don't get there, so like, it's so good. I can imagine it. I can almost taste it.
I've got some sample cans, at least that you can see of it.
See them.
Yeah.
Cool. So visit the podcast episode show notes, which will be linked somewhere to see maybe a blurred out version, which will activate when it's go time.
There you go.
But just to tease, is there anything else on your heart, mind that we're thinking about at Devil's Foot that you want to potentially share?
No, I mean, one of our lines is "the future's so bright," and we kind of stick to that. So it's just
That's
like,
right.
all right, let's just keep working together. And so we're pumped, man. Like I said, we couldn't have done it without this local community of entrepreneurs and customers and just organizations in general. So super blessed that we did it here. And yeah, we're gonna keep doing it. People keep drinking them, so we're gonna keep making them.
I love it. Where could we send people? There's going to be links everywhere, but where would we send them if they wanted to get connected to Devil's Foot?
It's just Devil's Foot Brew, BREW.com. That's our main website. And then we've got a link to the Mule there, which talks about kind of tasting room hours, events and stuff that we got going on. We do a lot of community events in there. We've got a lot of live music in there. The space feels really good, so we're pumped about that. Obviously the social media channels, we stay pretty active on that. But yeah, that's like where you can learn about us and what we do. So
Awesome.
Yeah.
Or go back to the beginning of the episode.
There you go.
And listen again. But it was wonderful to get to sit down and talk with you today. It's been a privilege. Been drinking Devil's Foot since we moved to town.
Oh, nice.
And it's beautiful to kind of close that loop.
Cool, man. Yeah, thanks for having me.